gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
That. Let's talk about that.
You need this. Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy.
Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. This week, we're talking about marketing lessons from Hamburger Helper's Watch the Stove mixtape.
Cause if you take my hamburger helper, I don't know what I might do.
All right, this is our favorite story. The glove from the Hamburger Helper is leaving behind the family dinner time to cut loose with the new hip-hop mixtape. The company made news today saying Lefty the White Glove dropped his first mixtape.
With the help of our special guest, CMO at HiBob, Sarah Reynolds. Sarah, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Excited to chat HR tech, Hamburger Helper.
Yes, bitch. Hamburger Helper.
Rap, everything in between.
A natural marriage.
Yeah, indeed. So why the heck did you pick Hamburger Helper's Watch the Stove mixtape today?
So this is like one of my favorite cultural artifacts, let alone pieces of marketing. My team will tell you that I am a sucker for like marketing of the absurd. And this mixtape, which originated as an April Fool's joke, but has lasted, I think, long sort of beyond just the artifact of being like a weird April Fool's stunt, is something that is like genuinely a joy to talk about. I think it's great marketing. And I genuinely like listening to it. I think it slaps. So it's one of my absolute favorite things to bring up when people ask me about, what does great marketing mean to you?
Do you have a favorite song from the mixtape?
Oh my God.
And why is it Feed the Streets?
I've been in the kitchen, whipping. I've been chefing, mix it with my left hand. Water whipping and I'm stirring. Y'all want beef and I'ma serve it. Water whipping and I'm stirring. Y'all want beef and I'ma serve it.
Yeah.
For real.
I think that's everybody's favorite song from the mixtape. I don't know. It's certainly the one that I think is mentioned to me most frequently. It's definitely one of my favorites.
When you say most frequently, you mean sort of on a daily or hourly basis, I'm guessing?
Yeah. In my normal life, when I am talking about Hamburger Helper mixtapes 24/7, I have my day job as CMO, my gay job, I'm an ERG leader, I'm a diversity, equity, inclusion advocate, and then I have my Hamburger Helper advocacy job where I just talk about this mixtape nonstop.
I don't know where you watched the video, Meredith, or listened, but I watched it on the Trap House 24/7 YouTube channel.
Yes.
Man, that got me so good. I was like, oh man, where could I find this the easiest? Oh, perfect. I'm glad. Now I know of Trap House 24/7 as well as Watch the Stove.
Wait, is there a video component to it as well?
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
Did I miss something?
No.
I think so. I think there is
a
a video for at least one of the songs. Because if I remember correctly, that was like a big part of some of the like media coverage at the time. But I could be wrong. It could be like a fan cam.
Well, I saw that they did ad spots. Is that what maybe the video component is?
I listened on YouTube. And so maybe that's where as with any great piece of art, people are going to put it other places. And it's only right for Watch the Stove. Zooming out, tell us about HiBob.
Sure. HiBob, as I said, is an HR technology company. HiBob makes a full suite of what we call human capital management software, HCM. That's the category that we're in. It's everything from recruiting a new employee to your company, onboarding them, giving them, a great experience of manager one-on-ones, going through performance and compensation cycles, assessing their engagement, helping them learn new things at work, and in general, inspiring them to do their best at their work. HiBob is like a modern sort of solution in the HR technology market. We really sort of describe our solution as something that's built for the types of companies that really care about their people. They're really people-centric. They understand that people power performance. Oftentimes they're mid-size, 100 to 10,000 employees, and multinational. Global teams have unique HR challenges. HiBob is a global company by birth. And so we wanted to build a solution that allowed you to deliver a great employee experience regardless of where your employees are sitting across the globe.
And as CMO, what's your remit there?
I cover everything in marketing, from analyst relations, PR, brand, corporate marketing, content marketing, through to demand gen, both digital and like out in the field. We do a great set of sort of product marketing, very sort of solution and customer oriented, talking to folks about what their pain points are. We have great product marketers on the team, as well as great operations folks who help us bring it all together.
And I got to say, you have a really cool brand, and we're going to get way into that later on in the show.
Thank you.
Meredith, what the heck is Watch the Stove?
So as Sarah mentioned, it started as an April Fool's joke.
Well, it was all a big April Fool's joke. It turns out the people on Twitter actually like the songs.
So in 2016, their mascot named Lefty tweeted that it had recorded and dropped a surprise mixtape. But then media
Lefty
outlets...
being Hamburger Helper's mascot.
Yes, exactly. Hamburger Helper's mascot is named Lefty. But then media outlets started reporting that the mixtape was actually real, and people got curious, clicked the link, and then the album took off. Even though it was a joke, it's not that they didn't take it seriously. So the mixtape actually came from an idea a couple of years earlier. In October 2014, whoever was running Hamburger Helper's Twitter posted a picture of the album cover for Drake's Nothing Was the Same, but they photoshopped Lefty, the mascot, on it, and the caption was, "The mixtape is almost ready." So somebody went like a bit rogue, I'm guessing. Although Sarah, you said that their Twitter was like kind of weird anyway, and that's kind of like why you were following it in the first place. And anyway, that tweet went viral. So people were like, what? Like, where's the mixtape? Where's our mixtape? And they kept bringing it up and tagging Hamburger Helper in their posts. And so Liana Miller, who's a marketing communications planner at General Mills, sort of the parent company, told Forbes in August, there were 6 of us, and we started talking about, what if we really did it? What would it look like? And they started doing they had their annual marketing planning, and they were sort of trying to spice up their marketing. They brought in this creative agency to sort of help reinvigorate their efforts, but everything was just too expensive. They already had like a bunch of coupon campaigns, and those were like, they described them as like effective but stale, right? And so their marketing manager at the time gave them an assignment to make something. She was like, literally make anything, but we just want it to be creative, but you have to do it on a small budget, because they didn't have much left over. And that's when they were like, let's make the mixtape. And the thing that I love about this...
So this is years later.
This is 2 years later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was like, had been in the back of their minds all of that time. But when it came time, like the cool thing that I thought was like, they wanted to source talent locally in Minneapolis, where General Mills headquarters is. And they first turned to faculty from local music and design departments at these local colleges. And the design professor got his students to create 2 ad spots for the project. And then the music teacher was like sourcing from his students. And so as for talent, like they did get like plenty of interest, but Amber Benson, who's their marketing communications manager, said that getting people to like actually commit was a bit harder. And she said, doing anything with millennials is always like walking a tightrope. Is this going to be cool, or is that going to be something that they'll totally roast us for? That was something that was on all of our minds during the entire process up until the morning we released it. This is either going to go really well or really bad. And so it felt like this huge gamble for them, which I thought was interesting. They're like, we're going to do this, and like, it might be really cringy or it might be really great. But they decided to focus on these young artists who are up and coming. But these artists that they were looking for would also like take themselves seriously, but they'd also be pushed because of sort of lack of recognition. So they personally wanted to do really well on this project. Liana Miller said, We chose to feature artists that were representative of our consumers, which I thought was really cool. And the marketing team told these artists they would have complete and total creative freedom to write a song about Hamburger Helper. The only stipulations was there could be no cursing and it can't offend your mother. So love those rules. The result of their mixtape, Watch the Stove, was 5 songs on SoundCloud.
Hamburger Helper blew everyone's minds by releasing a rap mixtape called Watch the Stove.
The top song is called Feed the Streets, as we mentioned, and it has 10.2 million plays, which is so many.
Can I be honest? It's actually pretty good.
But there's also their songs In Love with the Glove.
She's in love with that glove.
Crazy.
Some call me crazy. That might be true. Cause if you take my hamburger helper, I don't know what I might do.
Food for Your Soul.
But there's always one thing that never gets sold. Think that you could use food for your soul.
And of course, Hamburger Helper.
Swerving, switching lanes. Hamburger on my brain.
And so if I were to sort of like take lessons from all of this, I kind of love that Hamburger Helper kind of went like off brand. Like making a mixtape is just so out of left field. So I kind of love the like get a little weird or like go a bit rogue and make something totally different than what you're used to, like coupon campaigns or trap mixtape, you know. It's like so different.
The two genders.
Yeah. I love it. And the other things is like you can crowdsource your marketing ideas, take something that like your audience already loves and is asking you for and like make that. And the other thing is like music is a powerful tool that appeals to everyone. So you could make like a little jingle or whatever and that could take off. But Sarah, I want to come back to something that we were talking about before we started recording was like, you saw this campaign happen in real time. Like you saw the tweet, you were like, what is this? And you started to tell me the story behind that. Can you share with listeners what that was like and what your reaction was?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that you need to understand is that this was, I think, 2016, and Hamburger Helper joined Facebook first in like 2012. Shortly thereafter, they joined Twitter, and they were running like a pretty brand standard Twitter account. They were trying, though, to attract like a younger audience. They joined Facebook initially, as I understand it, because they were like, oh, families, you know, we're going to target sort of a core customer demographic. But they'd done a bunch of like offline activations, like food trucks and stuff, where they were trying to reach a new, younger, primarily male audience. And they found, of course, that Facebook at the time was not sort of like resonating with those folks. Most of those folks were over on Twitter. So they had this sort of like brand standard Twitter account, but sometime in like November, I think 2013, it pivoted to basically just being like hip hop commentary and sort of speaking in like much more sort of like, like slang terminology, like engaging with some of the like, you know, trending topics, but really doing it in their own way. And it really was not promotional about Hamburger Helper, even in the slightest. It definitely spent more time talking about rap artists than it did about Hamburger Helper. So I found it sometime between November 2013 and 2016 when this happened. And I found it because it was weird and people were speculating at the time, like, did somebody take over the @ and like somebody is like squatting on the @ and is trying to do like this weird like performance art? Are they trying to get General Mills to pay them to get off of this @ so that they can, you know, have like the brand @ back or, you know, whatever. Anyway, so nobody really knew what was going on. And I was, as I was saying before we started recording, I can remember exactly where I was when this dropped. I was flying back from a mid-year sales meeting that had happened in Arizona. I was in the Phoenix airport and we didn't call it doom scrolling at the time, but I was doom scrolling on Twitter. And this had blown up on their account, primarily because, you know, it's weird. And also because the mixtape was really, really good.
Hold up, I told you I'm serving that strong enough. Hot up the oven, it's molten lava.
And so they were starting to get all of this sort of like press and recognition and, you know, just general retweets and engagement with their sort of social media posting on April Fools. But yeah, it's one of the rare things in my life where I can be like, I actually know where I was when this happened because it was so memorable to me.
That's amazing. So my follow-up question is, would HiBob ever consider making a mixtape? And if
sure.
not, oh, okay. Amazing.
Well, I'll do anything for attention. I'm a chief marketing officer. Isn't that like right in the name? I think the thing that I love about this is like the question the team had about cringe. So I read someplace that they actually had originally, like they'd done all the development of this and they actually had it ready like way earlier. They were going to release it around like the Grammys, I read. And
that's so funny.
So they actually decided not to release it around the Grammys because the team was so worried about that line between like amazing and cringe. And they determined that they were going to release it as like an April Fool's joke because it came with like a cover of like deniability. Like it came with like, if this goes really poorly, if it flops, we can say, oh, it was just an April Fool's joke and we can kind of like get out of it. But it went really well. So of course, obviously the opposite happened.
So many things to discuss. First off, it is hilarious to me that they're worried about millennials because we're so old now that like it doesn't matter at all. Like when you were like, oh, millennials are, oh, they might think it's cringy. It's like, that's like, because we literally don't care at all about anything anymore and are definitely not popular in any way. So that's hilarious. Secondly, that I've been on so many calls that I know you have too, Sarah, where everyone's worried about like if people are going to take this the wrong way or think it's weird or whatever. The fact that you need to have any plausible deniability around your oven mitt making a rap video / album, not even a song, a full album, right? I mean, it's not full. It's like,
it's 5 songs. Yeah, 5 songs.
5 songs. But that you can't just be like, we did this for sillies. Like, this isn't like the idea of like, is this serious? Well, like, how could it possibly be anything but dead serious? No, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's funny that they're so in their own heads about this. If they had done it at the Grammys, that's even funnier. And back then, like brand stunts weren't like anywhere near as crazy as sort of they have become now on April Fools. But like, if you were to do this now, you would totally do it at the Grammys. You know what I mean? You would not do it, you know, on April Fools, because then it would be arguably not as cool to do it on April Fools. But gosh, it's so good and it's so funny and it's just great. Do you think that they should have doubled down? Because like, that's the thing that I like look at this. I'm like, if this was me, Ian, 2024 Ian, doing this, I would literally do this every year. I would do this like Star Search. I would be like, we're going to go try to find the next great rapper and do this every single year and do an EP with somebody and like do it every single year and make it part of like your shtick forever. Because like, why not? You had a huge success. And this is like, whenever I interview anyone, when they do have a huge success like this, and I go, and I was just talking to someone earlier today where they had a huge success with something. And they're like, we almost didn't do the season 2. We almost didn't do it. And I was like, why? And they're like, I don't know. I was just kind of on to the next thing. And I'm like, that's an insane thing to say. But that's marketers do that all the time. They have a huge hit and then they never do it again. And so anyways, I don't know, Sarah, what you would think, but like if you had the keys to Lefty right now, what would you do?
If I had my hand in it, so to speak.
Yeah, that's right.
I kind of agree with you. Like, I think the 2024 version of me would be like trying to figure out if I could call Jay-Z's people.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, I would try and figure out, like, of all the retweets, like, who was the most famous person in them, and can I get them to do, like, a guest spot? I don't know if I would, like, have it go on every year. Like, I think probably after, like, 2 or 3 iterations of this, you might have to pivot. But, like, there's certainly, like, enough subgenres of rap, for example, that you probably could have done, like, you know, different sort of styles of this and even made it like a community outreach project. And you could have done like really interesting like tie-ins with like nonprofit work. You know, so many of these big corporate companies, they have, you know, nonprofit arms. So, you know, where's the sort of like food bank performance? Where's the like endowing a music school called Lefty or called, you know, the Watch the Stove Auditorium, you know, or the stadium tour or the, you know, whatever it is. Like, I do think that there is like more here. I think it's sad that, you know, it didn't really go farther than this. Like, it's kind of perfect in the fact that it's like a finite sort of like thing that's just held on to this, like, at least for in my heart, it's held on to this like popularity, I guess, or infamy maybe is a better word. But I do think that like as a marketer, you yearn to be like, oh, I wish I owned that property because I know what I would do with that. Maybe they'll do a 10-year.
Yeah, right. But maybe we will do the 10-year.
Hell yeah.
Hamburger Helper, if you're listening, good people at General Mills, we're available for consultation. Please hire me. I'm begging you. No, but I think to me, it's one of the biggest questions about this, which is like, to me, there's two big questions about this. Number one is, maybe they're lessons, is we're always so scared of success and we pretend like it's failure, but they weren't scared that like it was going to flop. Like, yeah, they're definitely scared of that, but like they're scared that it goes viral and that it's also, oh, this is like cringy or this is like try too hard or whatever. But the whole point of like the zeitgeist of these type of viral things is like, unless you do something that's like really tone deaf, people are just going to forget about it anyways. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if you make something that you think is just genuinely funny and cool, it's like probably good enough. And we've talked on the show before. We've had people come on, this podcast and talk about projects that they've done that everybody was nervous about. And it turns out nobody should have been nervous in the first place. But it's just the idea that this took 2 years to incubate. They didn't launch it early. They didn't do all this stuff. It almost didn't happen. And yet it did. And now, we have it forever.
What a joy.
Right?
Thank you, good people at General Mills.
Well, and then, so the other piece of this is the sort of like, once you have a hit on your hands. And I think that that's like, to me, every year I would have done a parody of the hottest album and like keep making Lefty's thing. And like you said, just start tying it into the brand. And like, you think about like the brands that we love the most, the Red Bulls, or maybe we aspire to be like from a marketing standpoint. And all of them take like a single idea and then just like turn it up to an 11 so many times in a row until they're like shooting cars into space. You know what I mean? And like, that's kind of how I look at this is like, you get the hit, you get 10 million people, right, to listen to the mixtape. And from a marketing standpoint, all you need to do is just do volume 2 of this mixtape. And easily you're going to get like half of those people to come back and listen, right? But it's just like, you just publish it and it's 5 million people that are going to pay attention to Hamburger Helper and they didn't do it. And it's like, I don't know. It's just so fascinating to me.
Which is funny because they are still doing the sort of like hip hop, cool Twitter vibe. Like they did a rebrand a while ago. They're now called Helper, technically.
They did rebrand to Helper, but there is the whatever they're helping with is in the H2. So it still says Hamburger Helper, but Helper is a lot bigger. And then like Tuna Helper or whatever else you got, Chicken Helper.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategy because I'd still call it Hamburger Helper, and they're still tweeting into the void as the ship goes down on at Helper on Twitter. They're still sort of doing like the hip hop artifacts. I think they're still probably most known for being Hamburger Helper with Lefty as the mascot rather than being a helper of all sorts of different food varieties, many of which I was not aware of, again, prior to prepping for this. So it's sort of interesting that even as like the broader brand has pivoted, this artifact of like the Twitter feed is still intact, but then they haven't done anything with this massive hit that they had so many years ago.
Well, we have a little treat for you. Someone should be knocking at your door here momentarily. We have all 32 varieties of Helper ready to be sampled.
I'm gluten-free, so that might slow me down. But...
Oh, it's okay. They're customizable one-pan meals. And actually, I don't know if it's okay. They have gluten-free. It is just carbs and meat. But are they posting still on Twitter?
I think so. I can look it up. Oh no, January 2020, it seems that it died. But yeah, November 2020.
That's so sad.
They decided to stop with the commentary about the social stuff. Their last sort of like hip hop related tweet, it looks like, was about the Roots. There's also one that says like, it's Lefty in bed with sunglasses and it just says, woke up and felt a vibe. And like those are their last 2 entries in this canon of, weird media.
Oh, I like the one that says, I only love my pan and my mama.
I thought that they had LeBron James following them, but they didn't actually. But they have some famous followers. Anywho, that's probably a pretty good, segue to a second point there, which is stemming off of my once you have a hit, just keep winning in that way. Is like, build on your strength. Once you got it, keep it going. I mean, obviously, like I wrote a book about serialized content. I'm very into series. I'm very into, create it the first time and then, keep doing it. It's so hard. It's so hard ever in marketing world to ever give anybody something that they love. Like, it's just incredibly challenging to do that. And once you do it, you just got to keep going with it. But, you look at how much work would go into, posting on Twitter every day, for example, all this sort of stuff to get 100 likes, 200 likes, all those sort of things, which they actually do a great job, or they used to do a great job of that. And you could get 5 million people to listen by just doing it again. So anyways, I belabor the point, but the idea is, I think my biggest takeaway is once you find something good, build it into a series.
Definitely. And don't, let the corporate dogs get you down. Cause I have to imagine that at some point somebody woke up and was like, not the target audience was like, is this what our Twitter looks like? Or whatever. And you think about, the folks who made this sort of on a shoestring budget. And this was probably somebody's like a single or employees or a couple of employees sort of like, passion project that, didn't really have a lot of attention. And then it got this huge amount of attention. Then they kept doing it. And then at some point somebody pulled the plug. And it's like, it's just so sad. Cause I think that like, yeah, I mean, you are kind of like belaboring the joke a little bit, but I think that, if you think about like what was happening in the world in 2020, if that's really when this stopped, this seems like the perfect thing that would have captured people's attention when we were all, stuck at home and, engaging with media in a different way and, looking for, little bits of joy in our life during the pandemic or the height of the pandemic, I should say.
Let me juxtapose this with an equally silly campaign. When Planters did they killed Mr. Peanut and then they had Baby Nut. Do you remember this?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah. So anyways, they either actually killed Mr. Peanut temporarily and then they sort of went like Groot style with it, where it's like they killed Mr. Peanut and then brought him back as Baby Nut and then he grew up. Anyway, it's a ridiculous thing. But it was pretty dumb. And I think, by and large, and they did put a lot of marketing into this. Mm-hmm. But again, it kind of wins the internet for a day or a week or whatever, and then you go on to the rest of your life. But at no point, are you sitting there, eating a bag of, or a cylinder of Flanders peanuts or almonds.
Handful.
And you just, a handful, you throw them in your mouth and you just spit it out all over your house and be like, never mind, I forgot that they killed off Mr. Peanut and brought him back as Baby Nut. You know what I mean? It's like, we're so precious about this stuff. And it's so silly because we're selling, Hamburger Helper meals. It's not, it's not that serious to begin with. So the idea of adding levity into this thing. And the other thing is they have this really good mascot and it's really hard to develop a good mascot. And Lefty is a great mascot. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do with that. And that's another sort of takeaway for this is as you've seen in tech time and time again, where, people try so hard to make a mascot and make it work. We got our little caribou here, it's so hard to do that. And when you actually land on one that's pretty good and you can make it silly and have shtick and have them do stuff and give them an account and let them do silly things, it's a pretty big advantage because, now when someone sees that instantaneously, they know it's you versus, your whatever Trader Joe's version of that thing or Amazon Basics version of it. It's it actually gives you a little bit of leverage there in a quick visual second. And again, you kind of, to be ridiculous, you got to platform your mascot if you have a good one. And that's what they did. So anyways, that is, I think, part of this too. If Hamburger Helper makes a rap album versus Lefty making it, that's, I think, part of the reason why it was so successful.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so interesting too. Like, so I work in B2B and, so much of our work is like SEO driven. And there's so many discussions on the brand side about like, well, you don't want to have competing brands, right? Like you want to funnel everything to the HiBob brand, right? You don't want people searching for something else and getting confused and all this stuff. And I look at something like, CPG or, some of these other things in the consumer side of the world. And it's like, it's so brand driven. There are people who have, multiple brands or, to your point, a brand and a mascot that's super recognizable where the mascot has its own, personality and take. It's almost like the sort of like proto influencer when you give it a platform, especially in this era before things like influencer marketing really took off. I think it's a really interesting sort of proposition because it's instantly recognizable. You don't see a picture of Lefty and think that that's like, a character from, Disney or something. You know exactly what that is. It evokes a feeling, or a memory or a sense memory or something with you and with the brand. And it connects you in a way that's like, the midway stop between, a human being and just a sort of like a corporate brand would be, I guess.
Yeah. And like, there's all sorts of B2B companies that have been really successful with that. And there's, reasons why they did that. But at the end of the day, like it works. It works to see that thing, to see the logo, to see the brand, to have that, thing that you instantaneously recognize. Like that's part of having a memorable brand and, get you a brand who can also drop a sick album.
Hell yeah. I mean? Exactly. Like who doesn't want to be the steward of that brand? Like that's a joy. That's a different kind of joy. Like, I don't know. Like I said, it's one of my favorite things to talk about.
What else? What else did we not discuss of the brilliant Hamburger Helper mixtape?
I mean, like the timing is everything thing is funny to me. Like just the fact that it's, so weird. And to your point, like the fact that like, I think sometimes we're so serious about marketing and it's like, folks, this shit is supposed to be fun. Like people are supposed to look at this department and be like, dang, that's cool. Like I want to go and figure out how they figured out to do that, like it's just something that like, because it's absurd and because it, there was nothing to your point earlier, the corporate stunt, thing sort of hadn't taken off to the degree that it was now. Like there was nothing like this that was happening in, marketing, advertising, social media, like anything like that. Yeah. I mean, even brand management, like there was nothing happening that looked like this. It's sort of why it, I think, peaked so high and why it was so, I don't know, at least memorable to me.
I think people forgive jokes, even if it's a bad joke, as long as it's like not off color, you know what I mean? People forgive like all day, every day, people try to be funny and they fail at it, right?
Yes.
So if you're trying to be funny, if your brand is trying to be funny and you're not, people just ignore it. They don't get mad at you. Like people have this like idea of this like the troll army like coming after you over a bad joke. It's like, that's not what happens. They do like the Pepsi campaign or whatever, like there's stuff they'll come after you for. And even still, like that goes away and eventually like, as long as you're like kind of doing your best.
Yeah. And being cringe is like a uniquely human experience we've all had the pleasure of experiencing. Like we have all made a joke that because humor is subjective didn't land. Again, not an off-color joke, not something you're going to be canceled for, but like, you've made a joke that you thought was hilarious and it didn't land. Like you have been cringy in your life in some way. Like, I don't know. I think because it's like such a uniquely human experience, we like when we do sort of apply it to, like an anthropomorphized brand, for example, or like, we think of a brand a little bit more as sort of like a human or an intangible element. Like you forgive it easily because you're like, oh yeah, that didn't land. But like we've all been that person at the party.
It's so true. It's such a great point. And I was talking to our CFO yesterday and he told me, Ian, risks and rewards go hand in hand. And I think that so many people get scared of the risk and don't see the sort of upside. And the upside is you make your audience, your community, just 1%, you make them smile, make them a little bit happier for the day. And the downside is that they just keep on doing whatever it is they're doing. The risks are so incredibly low with this stuff. Like it's so low. Like, a kitchen mitt rapping about making food is not going to get you canceled. You know what I mean? So it's like, what is the risk? Maybe you waste some money, But I think it's just like, it's so incredibly low risk. And I would say that 99% of the ideas that I've heard from marketers, 99.9% of the ideas have not been bad. They might not be like the best idea in the world, but they're not going to get you in trouble in any way at all. And I think we just need to like take the risk, because that's where the reward is by doing something that's different or unique. It's not by just doing the same old.
I have to imagine that risk conversation is probably why there isn't a second album, and there isn't, like, they stopped tweeting in 2020 because somebody in the, spreadsheets department said, what if we, whatever, what if this doesn't land with somebody else in a different core demographic and we, accidentally upset the masses or whatever. I have to imagine that's why the project sort of like came to a close, despite the fact that, you and I are sitting here talking about it, many years later and holding it up as like, this is my favorite marketing of all time.
So I have another takeaway. Do stuff that's actually great. Like,
hell yeah.
The music is actually great. The songs are great. That's part of the reason why this works so much, is that if you played it at a party and the music was down a little bit, you would not know.
People don't notice.
All.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah. Either by accident or on purpose. For sure.
Yeah. And so my lesson here is take your sillies serious. And there's a great story of the great Michael Caine, that when they approached him to play Ebenezer Scrooge in Muppet Christmas Carol, that he was like, I'm only going to do it on one condition. It's like, I'm playing this 100% straight.
Yeah.
And because he did that and just goes absolutely ham in that movie, and there's no wink and a nod ever in the entire thing, it's so much better. One of my favorite movies of all time. And he took it really seriously, and the Muppets are sort of famously good at that. But by pairing the sort of ridiculous stuff with the character he's playing straight, then all of a sudden you have this amazing thing. And like, they did take the art part of this seriously, and the music is actually good. If it was a stupid ass song that sounded bad, it would not have gone viral, right? It's like, it just wouldn't have, or it wouldn't have been popular, right? And I think that's like a huge takeaway.
Yeah, totally. I also think there's like something to be said here about like listening to your customers. Like, the original idea for this, as we said in the beginning, was a tweet from like multiple years before the mixtape dropped, where, Lefty sort of like made a joke about releasing a mixtape, and suddenly it was their most liked tweet of all time. And then subsequently, like over the intervening years, would make, occasional jokes about the mixtape's almost ready. And like the customers, the fans, right? You're trying to be something to someone, right? So the someone you are trying to engage with is like, yes, do it. I dare you. I dare you. Do it. Let's do it. Right. And at that point, you got years of data saying customers want this, right? And okay, is it our core business? No, but let's see what happens if we give it to them.
You know what's so funny to me about that? It's like, again, if I was sitting back there, this is like every green light. I would have threatened to resign my position at the company if they didn't go through with it. I'd be like, it's our most liked tweet of all time. Everybody is asking for this. It's objectively hilarious. Like, there's no downside of this. People might talk about us on the internet and say this is cringy and we're trying too hard and all that stuff. And they're still talking about Hamburger Helper, which they don't do at all. So like, just to win the day is value enough. Like, zero downsides.
But I think we've all worked with an executive stakeholder who would veto this idea. You can picture that person in your mind right now. I can.
Oh, 100%. And I've pitched them ideas. So because we work with so many different types of companies, and sometimes I, get to the C-suite and sometimes I don't. But like, you're just like, what's the worst that happened? I said this in a meeting one time. Like, what's the worst that happened? We have a hit? Like, that's the downside, is that we have a hit? I'm like, this is great. What we're doing is great. People are going to like it. If that's the downside, like, well, what if it doesn't get exactly to our audience? It's like, well, then we'll take 10% of the audience that we wanted to get to, and the other 90% of the people will like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Again, that's not a downside either. It's like, if that song was the most popular song of vegetarians and vegans, it would still be a win, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if like people are a huge, are not the exact core consumer of your, you said that you're gluten-free, right?
Yeah.
You're not exactly wolfing down Hamburger Helper every day. Neither am I. We can still appreciate it. We're going to talk about it. And maybe someone in our family who actually does eat that, if we go visit their house and we're like, yeah, I'll buy some Hamburger Helper. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think people get so obsessed with just like having the perfect fit for everything. And it's like, that's not how great marketing works. It's not one-to-one. You don't nail it perfectly.
Totally.
People love Apple ads that don't own an Apple product.
Totally.
That's okay. Okay, final thing. I love the little cheap or free experiments that you can run by just throwing the tweet out there, putting it in an article, putting it in your newsletter, teasing something. So few people tease stuff because they're like worried that if they don't do it, that somehow this is going to like disappoint, some corporate overlords. But if you tease something and nobody ever asks you about it ever again, you probably shouldn't have made it in the first place. If you tease something and you don't do it and people ask you about it, then you have more reason to go make the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, you're like, oh no, we weren't going to do that. We're just being silly.
Yeah.
And then it's done.
Which gets to like the channel strategy of it all. Like, can you make a funny tweet and tease something? Totally. Should you put it in your 10K report? Definitely not. Like, yeah. I think that, there's like one of the like joys of social media, at least in the sort of heyday of, social media like this, was you could make a joke and you could see if it landed, and then you could do something with, that joke, which is pretty much exactly what happened here. Now, maybe it's like you can launch a one-off on TikTok, or you can do sort of a one-off, character sketch, and you can see if it lands. And if it lands, you greenlight more, right? But, it's maybe a little different. There's a little bit more investment up front now in sort of like curating something for social and then being able to test it. I love the call out of like a newsletter, though. That's an interesting one that I hadn't thought of.
Yeah, I mean, I do stuff like that in our newsletter where I'll put certain things or tease certain things. And I've done that over time of, things that we're doing. And yeah, people get excited about it or they don't or whatever. And they ask you, like, I thought you were going to do that thing. And you're like, I am now, I mean, I wanted to, but nobody wanted to do it. Like I sent out the group text to say, hey, let's go to the park, and nobody responded. So I didn't go to the park either. It takes two to go. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that, especially like, on your newsletter, it's like, what's someone going to do? Screenshot your newsletter and email you back and be like, you said you were going to do an event in Boston and you never did.
Yeah. It's like message testing a little bit. Like, this is like, you were talking about like campaign or idea or whatever sort of exploratory testing, but like I do informal message testing all the time. Like I get on an analyst briefing and I use a new line that I've been working on or a new idea that I've been fleshing out, or my product marketing team is like, I don't know if it's this, or I don't know if it's going to land, and you see what the reaction is. Like same on a podcast. Like I can describe HiBob a slightly different way, and I can see if, people are like, oh, I get it now. I have the genuine joy of having a C in front of my title, which means that if it doesn't land, I can just be like, oh, sorry, I'm a professional idiot. Like I'm an executive, you can't control what I say. I don't know. Like, and, then I don't have to use that messaging. And I know that it doesn't work, for example.
Yeah. I mean, people got so good at sort of like soft launching something, not having to do a hard launch, say, hey, this is coming. But like, that's what you do in startups, right? Like, hey, if we build this feature, would you buy it? Is one thing. The other thing is, hey, we built this feature, will you buy it? Like that's a completely different thing, right? It's like, well, I'm not going to put you through all the work to build a feature. I don't know if I want it or whatever. It's like, oh, I already built it. You're like, oh, well, I mean, can I buy it now? It's like, oh no, it's not going to be ready for 6 months. But like, or you could be in the beta test or whatever. Like there's stuff like that we do all the time, but that with our marketing, we don't do, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, right.
People soft launch boyfriends and romantic partners.
Yeah.
So like, why can't I soft launch some messaging? Like, who cares?
Exactly. And especially if you're doing advertising to be silly, right?
Totally.
Like, to make a joke. It's like, then really, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on the helper?
Just be weird. Like, let your freak flag fly. So I talk about this a lot from like the identity side of the conversation. Like I'm non-binary, I'm queer, I'm disabled. All of us, choose what version of ourselves we bring to work every day. And, as a leader, I choose every year to bring, more of my sort of authentic self to work because I know that there's a lot of power in representation. So like, okay, yeah, like I'm going to let my freak flag fly identity wise. And not that I think I'm a freak, just for a caveat for the recording, but like, I encourage other people to do the same if they feel like physically and psychologically, safe or brave to do so. Like, and I think that marketing's a little bit like that too. I mean, it's not the same stakes because you're not talking about like the innate things that make a human being who they are, and they don't have necessarily the same sets of like repercussions. But I think that, a brand, for example, like let your freak flag out a little bit, like be different. Who cares? Like, why do we need to all be the same? It's so boring.
Yeah, I think it's also just something to like remember that companies have been doing stuff like this for a long time. It just became normal. Like somewhere along the way, someone was like, we should sponsor a golf tournament.
Right.
Like that, like, you know what I mean? Like that was just like,
I should slap my logo on a person. Like,
that's right. Exactly.
What? I should put up a sign next to the highway with my logo on it and a slogan that tells you something while you're driving. What? I mean, totally. Objectively, it sounds insane.
Exactly. It's like all that stuff. So, and you're just, I think that like a lot of those ideas sort of started as crazy ideas, but they probably aligned with the way that someone, thought about something. It's like, hey, we're selling to people who like golf. Why don't we sponsor a golf tournament, or whatever it is.
Somebody had to think of it.
Yeah. And the reason why is because they met him there. So to say like, the youth like the raps, let's make a rap album, like is pretty great.
Totally.
One rap or multiple raps? How many are we doing? How do you think about brand and content and making sort of content decisions and ROI and all that stuff at HiBob?
I think we definitely think about like providing customer value from our content. I think that like creating content just for content's sake, especially like low quality content is, in my opinion, what's ruining the internet and making it unusable for humans. I really think about like, how do I provide value to a customer who has a really specific set of pain points? And it's kind of to the point of this discussion. Like, an old boss of mine once told me it's not thought leadership if you could go read it on somebody else's, website or blog or white paper. Like if you switch out your competitor's logo and the whole thing still makes sense, like you haven't nailed it. And I think about that a lot because when you're solving sort of customer problems, like, yeah, you could sort of regurgitate the same types of advice that other people give, or you could do something really different. So at HiBob, we choose to do sort of something different. We lean heavily on our really engaged community of customers who love us and love Bob, our platform. They do things like, make little LinkedIn social media videos, like onboarding a new employee called Bob to their company. They will, welcome them sort of with open arms as they launch their new HCM platform, which is incredible to me. We do things like, we want to give back to the community that we serve in HR, and they're often like underappreciated. They don't have the same resources maybe as everybody else. So, at a big industry event, we want to offer something like free headshots and, give people a great experience of like, hey, here's, how to professionally present yourself when you're developing your own personal brand on a channel like LinkedIn. We want to celebrate our customer case studies. We want to write great content. I was really inspired when I joined HiBob that, if in your first like 90 days and as an executive, there's all this stuff that you have to like figure out. And if you've never done it before, how do you go about doing that? And how do you know sort of what's normal and expected and how to navigate and how to build a 90-day plan and what your CEO expects of you and what your board expects of you? We wrote a guide about it. And, it was funny because somebody that I worked with in HR, a while back pinged me on LinkedIn a few months after the guide came out and was like, hey, should I read this? Is it good? And I was like, yeah, I promise it is good. She read it and she came back and she was like, yeah, I agree with you. It was a great guide to sort of being a chief people officer in my first 90 days. So make content that's different, make content that is really valuable to a customer, actually gives them something, isn't just clickbait.
And then how do you think about sort of like ROI and tracking this stuff and where it fits into the sort of the broader marketing mix?
I mean, I think like lots of folks, we're tracking everything from, is it getting organic reach? Are we seeing organic traffic develop? Is it SEO optimized? What type of conversion is it driving? How does it impact a buyer's journey, or where does it sit in the funnel? If it's something that is like a longer form asset, like a guide, and we're gating it, how does it perform in terms of downloads, in terms of overall engagement with the piece? And then, ultimately, do those folks go on to buy? I mean, not a lot of content marketing is like you download something and immediately you're, an MQL or whatever you call it at your company. And a salesperson calls you and you say, yep, I'm ready to sign the paperwork right now. Oftentimes you're thinking about something that's farther up the funnel. So I think you're thinking about sort of the holistic experience that you're giving to someone, and you're trying to the best of your ability with your attribution to track, did this make a difference for folks as they engage with more and more stuff? I mean, ultimately, content is about, does somebody come back for more? Did they learn something? Did I provide some value? And do they come back for more? If they come back for more, that's a great compliment. And if they come back for more and ultimately buy something, I mean, even better.
Well, Sarah, this has been wonderful chatting with you. Final question here. For a first-time CMO, how should they think about their content or brand strategy?
I think that brand is one of those things that, like, especially in B2B, it gets forgotten or gets deprioritized because we want marketing to be very trackable. We want it to be very data-driven. We want it to be like, a lot of executive stakeholders, I'll say it, they want it to be coin operated. I give you $1 and I get 6 or 8 back, right? Especially when you're small, you don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about like the brand in the same way that, these big brand driven companies definitely do. I would say, think about, how do you protect the art part of marketing and not just make it entirely science? Or as I say to my team, sometimes you have to make decisions based on data, and also sometimes you have to make decisions based on vibes. And I think if you carve that out, from an earlier stage, or you make that part of sort of your CMO persona when you walk in the door, like, yes, absolutely, I'm data driven. Yes, absolutely, I want to talk to you about the impact on the business. I want to talk to you about the pipeline that I generate or the sales that I generate. If you're, more like e-commerce oriented, great. And I want to talk to you about feelings and vibes and the brand. And I want to, this is an important part of the work that I do too. For me, for example, my first focus, because HiBob had a beautiful brand when I arrived, and I'm so grateful to the team who was sort of the steward of the early days of the HiBob brand. But my first focus was inclusivity and accessibility. Let's make sure that the way that we represent ourselves is really holding true to our corporate values that focus on DEIB, that really speaks to every single person that we want to. Let's make sure that, we look at things like color contrast. Let's make sure that we look at things like the typography that we're using and the brand styling that we're using. And we're making it so that it's accessible to, all of the people that we want to reach. Not just because my queer, disabled, non-binary ass told you to do so, but because this is genuinely what we, believe as a brand. And this is what we want to put out into the world. And this is what we want people to know about us. We want to lead in this space. So, does that come with a very clear, direct ROI number? No, it doesn't. It comes with doing the right thing and being different and making sure that we're prioritizing the things that really matter to us and to our community and to our audience. We're being something for someone in a way that maybe not every brand in this space is thinking about. Sometimes I describe it as like the Heisman Trophy for my team. Like the Heisman Trophy, if you're like holding the ball back here and you're kind of putting your hand out to block. Now I'm doing the thing where I'm trying to describe a visual thing over an audio medium. Like irony. But, the blocking thing, the ball you're holding, the baby you're holding, that's your brand. That's the emotional connection that you have with people, right? Like the blocking out here, you got to do all the other stuff that a CMO needs to do, and you need to communicate with executive stakeholders who maybe are never going to understand the value of that, football that you're holding. But I guarantee you that your customers, they make emotional decisions that they back up with data, and brand is that like emotional, art side of marketing in so many ways.
It's just I like them better.
Right.
Like that is so important. And I'm so glad that you said, vibes and data, because I think that, and I've said this, sort of many times before this, but it's like data is obviously you want to be super data driven. I don't doubt that. But anytime you do anything new, inherently there's not going to be a data set that you can 100% rely on.
Right. There's no benchmark for mixtapes developed by mascots. Maybe there is now. Yeah. There's a data point of 1 that I know of. Yeah. Drop me a comment if you know of others that I should be aware of. Right.
But yeah, it's like things are just changing so confidently. I am sort of becoming notorious amongst very few people for the fact that I adopted this no forecasting strategy, because basically I was listening to this podcast and this founder is basically why are we lying to ourselves? We have no clue what's going to happen. We can predict, but and you have to do that. But at the end of the day, depending on the size of your business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's all you do when you do that is just set yourself up for failure. Future you is way smarter than current you. So you're just lying to yourself.
Totally.
You're saying, hey, I think that this is going to happen. It's inherently, you just don't know. Nobody, and companies have hundreds and hundreds, thousands of people that sit in teams that try to predict the future and nobody can do it. So why spend so much time and effort to do that? And sometimes you just have to say, I think it'll work. And if it doesn't, then here's what happens. And here's how we've, triaged the whole thing to make sure that if it doesn't work, then here's the other stuff that we can do. But if you think it's a good fit for your audience, if you think that they'll like it, then chances are you're on the right track.
Right.
Well, our listeners can go to HiBob.com, go nudge your chief people officer, your CHRO, someone on your HR team, go check it out. People like VaynerMedia, modern HR teams, they love HiBob. Go to HiBob.com. Sarah, any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
Yeah, if you want to say hi to Bob, please come and see us at HiBob.com. If you want to see our photo shoot, Headshot Lounge live in action, I think we're at Unleash Trade Show in Paris in a few weeks' time. We'll be at all of your favorite HR trade shows from there on out. If you want to say hi to me, you can find me on LinkedIn /Sarah Liz Reynolds, or you can find me tweeting into the void as the ship goes down on the artist formerly known as Twitter over at Fair Pay Monster.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a joy to talk about one of my favorite topics.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.